Checking in again with State Representative Jackie Chan of Quincy for another Techie Talk podcast. How you doing today, Jackie?
Hey, doing great. Great to see you as we're closing in the middle of the second half of July. Always happy to see you. And notice I'm home this week when I was in the office last week.
Yeah, well, you don't look too smoky or singed, but were you at the State House when the fire broke out?
Yeah, I had meetings at the State House yesterday, in-person meetings, and a few virtual ones too, as we talked about this whole hybrid world where we're in and then we're on video and then we're still in. It's a bit of a scheduling juggle. But we actually had two alarms yesterday, about 11 o'clock-ish, right before 11 o'clock-ish. We had a fire alarm go off because somebody went through an alarm door incorrectly, which then triggered the full alarm, which is the evacuation. And we're back inside the building in less than 20 minutes once the police and the Rangers signaled all clear. And then around 2:15-ish, give or take, the alarm went off again. So most of us figured, well, somebody opened the emergency door a second time as they're doing construction in Ashburn Park. Access to doors have been a little bit confusing because we lost the Ashburn Park entrance to construction. And next thing you know, we're out there, we're under the arches, and we figured, okay, well, this will be another, thing. We'll, wait it out for like 20 minutes, and it'll give it all clear. And next thing you know, they're shuffling us across the street, like Rangers and cops, like literally moving everybody across the street. And we're like, okay, so this is for real. So we're trying to figure out what's going on because, bomb threats are a weekly event in the State House. Most people don't realize that we are subject to bomb threats and as well as actually cyber attacks all the time, it sounds like, from the LIS people, to information system people. So this is very regular. So we're across the street. I ran to our DA, Michael Morrissey, outside, which, we had some stories sharing with the interns and the staff, as you guys can imagine. And then, I popped my head out to see what's happening. And they're really pushing people like across the street, and they have the cops coming in to shut down the street. And now we're up to like 5 fire trucks. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of fire trucks. Then we see a truck on Dern Street, which is in the backside of the building where original or the older version of Suffolk Law, those from Suffolk Law on Beacon Hill, not the new building, sitting on that side of the street, and it blocked off the entire end of Dern Street and a ladder up. And I'm like, well, this is for real. This is not someone burning popcorn in a microwave or some instance of an alarm pull by prank or someone going through the wrong security exit or entry points. This is like a real problem. So next thing you know, word's out that there's an electrical fire of some sort in the basement, and kind of permeated ways up. And we were still hanging out there. First it was like 30 minutes, then became like 2 hours, then became we don't know how long it's going to take to deal with the situation. So everyone's hanging outside. People head to a restaurant, cool off. It was pretty warm, as you all know, yesterday. So everyone found a bar, restaurant, coffee shop, whatever. At this point, everybody was spreading out to the four winds, and texting and calling each other as people kind of was waiting for word. And about 5:30-ish, there was active talk via this thing about going back into the building just to grab and go. The issue was carbon monoxide had filled up the State House. And those who ever visit the State House know we don't have a properly functioning HVAC system. There's no HVAC in our building that works well. We're still most of the building runs on forced hot water or forced hot cooling and just a little fan underneath the pipes. There's no actual ventilation system. So not surprising, the carbon monoxide is lingering. They have opened a bunch of the doors and got the fans out and trying to vent the building. So about 5:45 or so, we go in and get our stuff and get out. And it had that kind of burnt rubbery metal smell in the hallways. And, it became like, we can't linger here too long. This can't be good for us. So we packed up our stuff, the laptop, obviously, I'm talking to you, this laptop, had to get our equipment. And we were instructed last evening that we would be working from home. And the joke I have is no more snow days for the staff because we have the ability to work anywhere. We spent 2 years learning how to work from anywhere. This is kind of one of the interesting outcomes. No informal session today. They moved it to tomorrow. And It appears they shifted all public hearings, and I know there's some big public hearings going today. Everything's been shifted, and we had 4 public hearings suspended yesterday in the middle of the fire emergency. So there's going to be 4 committees rescheduling the hearings, which actually they were like an hour into the hearings when the fire went. So that's also going to cause some disruption, not necessarily for the committee members, but for the testifiers who don't have to reschedule their lives. A lot of public testimony because people make time. As I said before, citizens come in, regular folks come in, people just want to wander in and testify. And this now becomes an inconvenience for them. We didn't cause this, obviously. So now there's no inconveniences for folks. So everybody's safe. I heard of no injuries. People were able to get out timely despite losing one of our entry points, exit points at Ashburn Park. And thank you to the Rangers, the state troopers, the firefighters, building management folks, and folks that were going to pull the alarm because they did see smoke. So, thankfully everybody's fine, and we're all working from our houses today.
Yeah, as I understand it, there were 2 main issues. One, they couldn't really put the fire out until they shut the power off, so they had to wait for the utility company. And as you mentioned, the CO levels just went through the roof after that. So those 2 issues combined, you can't let people in the building.
Yeah, and again, I left out Eversource. They had to come down, and you're in Boston. You all know there's no above ground wires. So all the wiring around the state houses in manholes under the ground, they had to come and shut the power off, and they also have to check the gas and electrical lines around the state house too, because it's all underground. And is you're aware, state house is in a residential area, so it just got more problematic. I mean, it could have catastrophic events depending on, if this fire, got spread or affected the utility systems. It could get really bad. It's you go to other states. A lot of the other states, state houses actually have what do you call it? A boundary around it. It's generally up to 2,000 feet. So it's, I won't say isolated, but it's, it's not in like next to someone's house, which is what it's like in Beacon Hill. State House is literally across the street from people's homes.
Yeah. And the Boston Common is your front yard. So it's all public space, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's no like barrier space or open space between the State House and anybody else. Most people don't realize that. Like, you go to like the Capitol, for example, they have this huge space you have to get through before you have to get to the doors, right? Same thing with many other capitals. There's a lot of the urban type capitals come from the older cities, obviously. Colonial era cities have the obviously the newer capitals around the country. They could urban design a park, open recreational space, or something around a capitol building, so they can people can use it in public. And in the modern era, it also creates a security barrier.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, something they have to be concerned about. So have you heard, is it going to be open tomorrow on Thursday?
Yeah, that's the word so far. It is contingent on venting the carbon monoxide out of the building. So that's the only contingency. And, they're going to have to open windows, grab fans, and just, keep pumping this stuff out of there. But I anticipate we should be okay coming tomorrow. I suspect we're going to have our windows open all day tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah.
To continue the venting process. I do expect that it's going to have some tinty smell for a while.
Yeah, it's that ozone smell from electrical fires that we know about here.
Yeah, and I'm in a basement office.
So
this stuff tends to sink. So, and it's going to get trapped because we have the granite concrete ceilings above us. Yeah, they're like 14, 15 feet high, but there's nowhere else for it to go. It just kind of lingers. There's no like HEV blowing down or anything sucking it up. It just sits there, right? And the only way it can float out next is through the hallways. And there's only one one stair entrance, which is part of the bottom of the grand staircase. And that's the only way up. On the other side, there's actually nothing. Well, there is one, but it's not as open in terms of like available airspace. The other one's a much smaller airspace on the other side of the hallway. So, yeah, I think we're going to be dealing with this for a while. So we'll be all visiting State House in the next 2 or 3 days. Maybe into early next week, you might sniff some odd burning smells.
It's an old building. It's a historic building. So it comes with its quirks.
Well, the side of the building I'm in has a foundation stone saying 1899 on it. So the building's 1797.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of the oldest continuously functioning state houses in the U.S. and in the world, actually. And it's we still are a public building. We're a functional office building, and we're actually a museum. So it is a unusual Capitol building, even on a global level, specifically when it's a continuous use and continue use in the manner we're still using it.
Mm-hmm.
Other places, this age, use the legislative body function, but you don't have office functions in there. Office functions are somewhere else.
Right. Well, I mean, even Quincy City Hall now is like that, right? The old town hall is like that, and then there's the McIntyre Mall for all the offices.
Yeah, exactly. You find this. My favorite examples of this is Albany, New York. They have another very, very old state house, but the administrative office is across the street. So it's they have the public hearings, the staff offices, and everything else there. They usually use the building as the legislative body. So, right. And as you all know, I mean, this place predates central heating, plumbing, electricity, and Wi-Fi. So, it's definitely a hodgepodge construction. I mean, if you want to do this right, you have to gut the whole place, right. Spend probably $100 million more, and just gut the whole thing and do it like modern code. But I'll be honest, that's never going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure out how to renovate the House chamber that's been talked about for many years now. We know the Senate chamber was renovated and complete about 5 years ago, but we're still trying to figure out how to do the House chamber, which does have a leaky roof. There, constantly restoration work along the paintings that you see behind the rostrum, and and the electrical system and the lighting is very antiquated. So, yeah. At some point, probably not under this speaker's time, perhaps the next one, they need to come up with a plan at some point before the nature of the building will get to the nature of the room.
But yeah, I mean, what's going to happen is there'll be a new building somewhere nearby, and that will be turned into a museum.
No. We're very much into our traditions. I have a hard time seeing this building ever not be what you see today in terms of accessibility and usage.
Oh, okay.
It's a tradition. I mean, it's been doing this since the end of the Revolutionary War. And we abandoned the original state. Oh, not us, me, but I mean the original founders. Abandoned the State House, which is now a museum on State Street, which has the train station running underneath it. But the historical nature of the building and the continuation tradition, I suspect until the Republic ends, this building will continue to be used, in the manner you see it today. It just needs work. That's okay.
All right. We'll see what happens. We'll both be gone by that time, probably, Jackie.
I definitely hope to be well gone by that time. As I kind of state more and more as I'm getting a little bit long in the tooth in politics, I mean, I have no interest in dying in this place, but, when the time is right, it's time to move on and move
on. Hey, want to talk about North Korea for a while? We haven't done that in a bit, and it's back in the news again.
Yeah, it's about maybe almost a month now. I mean, they had a failed silent launch, which caused a panic in Okinawa, and South Korea did go into emergency, essentially lockdown mode for about 15-20 minutes, where they're trying to determine whether it was a ballistic attack or was it an error. It turned out to be their first attempt at a spy satellite launch failed and essentially exploded and fell into the sea in the area, but it did cause a panic. And you guys all know tensions have been very much ramped up the last 4-ish years. Most recently, a U.S. serviceman who was in jail for assault in South Korea and getting deported back to the U.S. for military tribunal, which more likely resulted in a discharge, didn't get on the plane when escorted there to come back to the U.S. Instead, took a tour group to the DMZ and ran across the line in North Korea and was promptly captured. When I visited my North Korea, my South Korean visit back in 2014, I believe now. I did go to the DMZ. I got pictures of it. And, there's specific rules. You don't point, you have to stand certain directions. You go take pictures of certain things. I mean, it's very strict for tourists. And there's been like over 2,000 incursions at the DMZ. It's things that have happened, but, it's only been like 5 U.S. servicemen or 5 U.S. people that actually had an incursion incident. But of course, many incursions occur. What happens when North Koreans are trying to flee the south, and most people don't realize North Korean tunneling, was occurring in the 70s, right into early 80s. The U.S. and South Koreans caught these tunnels trying to essentially invade South Korea. Actually, it's part of a museum now. Some of these tunnels from the 70s of this like invasion plan.
From underground?
From underground, yeah. Tunneling is a big thing in warfare. And the Korean Peninsula, tunneling was crucial as part of both sides' military actions. I never realized that. And tunneling warfare is a very, very big thing with the North Koreans. So most days you can't even detect it, but it was like, it turned out, I think one of them turned up as an accident because they hit a water system. Okay. And when the utility guys came out and saw, hey, there's a lot more going on here than just a broken pipe. The military came in, and of course, North Koreans blamed the South Koreans for building the tunnel.
Yeah.
But if you look in, they use small explosive charges, and you can see the facing direction of the charges was not facing the South Korean side.
Interesting.
So, but it is very unusual for folks to cross into North Korea, particularly at the DMZ, where they're just going to shoot you.
Yeah. How big is the DMZ? I mean, can you see across it, or is it like a football field's length? Or
yeah, it's actually is kind of a tourist area for South Korea. They have tour groups. Shock, it was like a mini amusement park at one point. But I mean, it was built in the area where they have an observation deck. You can see right across the DMZ. DMZ is not a small area. I mean, once you look at it, they have the memorials as well. Folks that missed their loved ones on the other side of the line because families were broken up and never reunited as people fled during the end of the Korean War. During the Korean War, the Korean War vets will tell you. I mean, the place was just bombed to nothingness, and it was really bad. I mean, people don't realize how bad it was. Korean War vets will tell you there's just endless amount of destruction going on, and it was a fight for your life type situation in actually a pretty small geographic area.
Yeah. Is there a physical border, Jackie? Is there like a wall or a fence or something?
There's a fence, but most of it that would deter you is actually the wilderness. So, since the end of the war, nature has reclaimed undeveloped areas, and the DMZ is undeveloped.
Yeah.
So, what was once a wasteland of shells and destruction has become a really forested area with wildlife. Interestingly, wildlife. A lot of scientists actually looking at wildlife from the South Korean side to see, things that returned, animals that came back, and unfortunately, there's a lot of landmines.
Yeah.
So you could try to, climb a fence, get through the minefield in the wilderness. This very short strip of wilderness, but it's completely wild. To try to get to the other side and climb yet another fence. So it sounds simple, but it really isn't. And again, landmines. So, I was told a story that it's not surprising some wildlife actually will hit a landmine and they would have to investigate what happened to said landmine.
Right.
So, it's fully militarized in the sense that, you can't see it all from the tourist areas, but to have all the relative military equipment you would need that you're going to cross over, you can cross over. The areas tourists see are designed for tourists.
Sure.
And
yeah.
In the North and South Koreans actually have identical looking tourist areas on the other side, essentially, where Chinese tourists actually go to the North Korean side. It's part of the Korean economy. And they have these rooms in the middle of the zone on the line. And that's where official communicate happens between the North Korean and the South Korean or any other government. And the UN has a peacekeeping force in there, of which none of the major powers, well, they're represented. It's actually the other countries that are represented, like Sweden. You heard the news. Sweden's the current UN member that's in charge of dealing with incidences on the border as part of the UN component to it. And the Korean War technically isn't over. This is an armistice, so technically both sides are still fighting. Technically speaking, it's just an armistice. Same thing with actually interesting. Russia and Japan never signed a formal peace treaty after the World War II.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was never a formal peace treaty. So, they're technically still at it since World War II, but they kind of figured, we're not doing anything, so why do we need something formal?
Well, everybody that was involved at that time is gone, so.
Yeah, they kind of like, but I suspect maybe perhaps they'll close that loophole and, maybe after Ukraine's done, perhaps. I have no idea. No, these are little trivia facts that are out there that that people don't realize. I mean, the Korean War is not technically over; it's just an armistice. So, with the war in Ukraine going on, South Korea feels a little more emboldened, obviously, regarding what's going on their ability to rattle people. And historically, tactics has been, cause trouble, freak people out, make a demand, get something out of it. What's been interesting with this current I don't know, I won't call it president, but dude that runs the place. He doesn't make a lot of demands. He shaber rabbles, but doesn't follow up with "I want oil, I want grain, I want rice, I want XYZ." And during COVID, the claim was that they had very minimal deaths with no true modern hospitalization system, high malnutrition country. And no vaccinations.
Yeah. So and of course you don't know because there's no official record.
There's no official record, and I will tell you they probably intentionally kept no official record.
Yeah.
So you will never know what really happened up there during COVID. I mean, a lot of the UN studies of North Korea regarding starvation and famine, which is real. Really comes from people who escape out of the area and try to do some general math to figure it out. But, those who escape North Korea, you can find the stories online. They're part of the UN documentation regarding human rights. It is tragic and frightening. And again, it is a closed country, despite internet and, satellites and radio waves and everything else. It is one of the most sealed off parts of the planet in terms of communication in and out of an area. It's shocking when you think about the fact we constantly talk about data privacy, the ability to watch TV, people who still listen to radios or now have silent radios, or probably people just read and listen over the internet, or 5G, 4G radio is something that's part of our lives. There is a part of the planet that does have technology that's denied to its citizens as a modern economy, and somehow still able to, basically control by information from the state, a whole population of millions that really have no idea what the rest of the world looks like. It assumes that they're living in a good situation. The rest of the world is, completely collapsed.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting that this military defector thought that was better. U.S. court.
Well, the truth is, there's a few scenarios that could happen. One, he could find himself in a jail being tortured for information until the North Koreans realize that there's really nothing to get. The other option is that they could make him an example of the death of the U.S. Supremacy. And the Western world and the rest of the world is horrible because this military person came over the other side to seek asylum.
Right.
And he tried to plead asylum, and he will basically do whatever he's told to avoid a harder life there by spreading North Korean propaganda. If he does do that, they're not going to be shy to share that with the rest of the planet.
Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah.
So stay tuned. This could be a very interesting outcome, as those are a couple of possible scenarios. And whether or not, the U.S. wants to or able to bring them back. There is a U.S. policy that if you're a U.S. citizen, that, the U.S. government, is duty bound to try to find a way to bring you home. If you're in jail, obviously, for a crime committed, that's a different conversation. But even then, I mean, there's always a desire to maintain contact with those folks and then try to get them back. We can name some cases which I have a lot of question marks for over many years, but that's been the U.S. policy. I mean, remember that Clinton had the kid that was graffiti in Singapore, and they negotiate how many caning he would get in the Singaporean law.
I remember that. Yeah.
You had that kid that defaced the North Korean poster in the airport.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he died.
I think you're right.
He
died after he got home. Yeah.
Yeah, because of mistreatment.
Yeah.
So, it is the U.S. policy of doing that. We still have some people in Russia. They were trying to still get out, as you guys know.
Yeah, there's a Wall Street reporter, I think, that's over there.
Up to a Wall Street reporter, yeah. They're going to be cracking down on all foreign-born media, much less crack down on the local. So if you're non-local, it's bad. But if you're from outside Russia, I think they're going to come find you. Just the bottom.
Okay, so I'll cancel my trip then.
Yeah, I don't see us doing a tacky talk from St. Petersburg or Moscow anytime soon.
No, we just have to stick with good old Quincy.
Yeah, I think we're much better off overall.
I think you're right. So we still don't have a state budget, Tacky.
Yep, it's every conversation every week. I know there were obviously, because of the nature of the fire, we got to see the Senate and House Ways Means chairs floating around. So obviously they were working today, yesterday. So the conversation continues. As I said before, and again, I'm continuous speculation, so please don't hold me to this as fact. I think the tax package continues to be a bit of a problem because, again, it's whatever tax cuts, because that's what they are, cuts, are going to bake into the bottom line of the budget. And that is an overall revenue reduction, not just for this cycle, but future cycles. And the two versions of the bill are quite far apart on
really
what they look like. Excuse me. As well as how they try to make it revenue neutral.
Okay.
Or as close as possible to revenue neutral. I can't promise it's going to happen. That's why it's called a tax cut. Baked in the fact that existing revenues or existing systems that we have in place is able to deal with it. I won't say shortfall, but I mean the rebudgeting of what the future is. I mean, like when we did Chapter 70, obviously, massive increase. The city got another $8 million and counting per year, $8 million plus per year additional money for education funding. Obviously that gets baked into the baseline budget for next year, right? Mm-hmm. And at least for 7 subsequent years, that's going to be the full amount. Same thing we have Medicare, Medicaid, particularly the Medicare side. We pay half of all that as well as part of that federal program. That's baked in the future, as we keep talking about in the news over and over again, the baby boomers, right? It's constant conversation in the news. But those are our new Medicare recipients. So we actually have to budget our budget in anticipation of X number of folks hitting that age based on census data and budget that in, which then squeezes the rest of the budget, right?
Yeah.
As I said before, and I'll say again, revenue growth is very bizarre right now because while people's wages are up, capital gains are a complete disaster in this cycle, which were marvelous the cycle before. At some point, wage growth is going to have to slow, and consumer spending on discretionary items that are subject to sales tax, are going to take a hit at some point.
Eventually, it hasn't yet, though. It was up again in June.
Yes, consumer data is ahead of prediction. Chicago consumer data showed that consumers, I believe, at 72% confidence in the consumer economy. It's very mixed bag because if you listen to national data regarding supermarkets, still sticking to very specific brand names, but it's just scaling back on things like beef. Mm-hmm. Which has very high prices, to sticking to the essentials. So obviously everyone knows Campbell Soup and all the Smucker stuff and the various brand names, and they Pepsi, they have all the Frito-Lays and so forth. Those guys are still to sell in inflationary price, but people are like being much more particular about what they purchase. They're being very selective.
We'll see what the Be curious to see what the sales tax holiday weekend brings. If folks take advantage of that.
Yeah, what's that? That's the second weekend in August, I believe. So that'll be like the let's see, the 10th is my birthday, so that's a Thursday, I think. So Friday, it'll be 12 or 13.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, everyone should take advantage of sales tax holiday. But again, I mean, even the sales tax factor, and I know it's back to school time. That's part of the reason why I do the sales tax in August. Exactly, people are going to be very selective. I know Amazon Prime Day was really good, but Amazon Prime Day also was also a massive amount of discounts to clear inventory. So will retailers, brick and mortar retailers in particular, do massive amounts of discounts sales tax weekend to try to clear out inventory for the winter?
Probably, yeah. You'll see a lot of summer clothing probably on sale, and beach wear and stuff like that.
And I think we're going to find electronics still on sale. I think they'll try to clear inventory of that because people have bought a lot of the big screen TVs and other electronic goods during the COVID time period. People getting big TVs shipped to the homes. But I think we might be able to find, a lot of good deals that weekend, particularly stuff that's, over inventory. You just got to get stuff out of the warehouse. But does Amazon Prime a prelude to what's going to happen in August? And again, I say again over and over again, I believe people have already planned their vacations back in January. They've already been prepaid for, which is the travel you see in the summer into the fall. But what's going to happen between Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Yeah, no, but it's an unknown right now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and as stores, all stores, doesn't matter what, online or brick and mortar, inventory is the issue. You don't move inventory, it just costs you money.
That's right. Yep, it's not making you money, just sit on the shelf.
Exactly. And, you've seen some electrical car price cuts. Tesla did massive cuts. Ford is cut to F1. Was it F-150?
Yeah, I think that's right. The electric version.
The electric version. Yeah. It's cut their prices in a price war with Tesla, but also getting the car loan is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's even with federal government assistance on buying certain electric vehicles and even these price cuts, people are going to have to take out loans and cars, perhaps in the 6% higher zone.
Yeah, depending on your credit, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to affect your credit. It can affect your credit, and in regional banks, small banks are going to be denying loans more because of the higher interest rates and the bond yields and all this other stuff of how banks make money on your money. And there's going to be stress on these smaller banks to increase their interest rates to keep your deposits as opposed to migrate by a click of a button, on your phone to move your money around. I think there's going to be a lot of stress on smaller banks on issuing these loans because there's still some uncertainty about whether wage growth, which is slowing, is going to be able to continue. And and this is a 70% consumer-driven economy. The economy is largely driven by us. We're able to spend money. And I don't know if you saw the import exports out of China, but import exports out of China in the last quarter is down significantly. They did not make target at all. And exporting goods out of China is essential for the global economy. And they're the single biggest consumer of import goods in the sense that, the U.S. imports of things from Coca-Cola to Estee Lauder, the Europeans and Ralph Lauren, and all that U.S. brands are imports. And, consumers in China have been very frugal in spending on certain items too, which affects our imports to that country, which affects jobs here.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of question marks, on the global level. The EU is technically still in a recession, technical recession. But, the British today reported its first inflation reduction, significant inflation reduction by just about a percentile, which is a big deal because, Europe, England was looking, staying in that 8 to 10% zone for so long in inflation. It affects your buying power, especially imports.
Yes, yeah, and energy prices are still high too, so there's that.
Yeah, globally, energy prices are still up there, but it's very volatile. It's very volatile pricing. I think that's one of the problems with consumer price indexes and core inflation indexes and other indexes they use regarding economies. That there's just no steadiness on the fuel market because the Saudis are trying to cut, but no one else wants to play with them, so it becomes a bit of a mess. And the Russians are trying to keep prices artificially high, and the European U.S. price cap seems to be having an effect because the Russians are working very hard to try to do market manipulation with the people still buying gas from them to try to keep it as high as possible. But if you look at the WTI graph, it's like all over the place. And they can't fund that war in Ukraine without pushing out more gas globally. And eventually that war is going to have an impact on domestic spending.
Yep.
They can't get enough gas sold because that's pretty much what they got. And, grain sales is going to be a mess for Russia too, because people need it, but, they need your money more than they need that grain out. And at some point, all that spending is going to adversely impact their domestic spending on supporting their own economy and infrastructure. I mean, California and Texas each have a bigger economy than Russia.
There you go. That says it right there. Yeah.
Let's put this in perspective. I mean, Russia dropped out of the top 10 when the war started. And, I think at least 5 states in the U.S. is a bigger economy. I think New York, Florida, Texas, California, and probably one other one, it's going to have a bigger economy than Russia.
Well, what else? I mean, all they have is natural resources to sell, right? I mean, we're not driving Russian cars. We don't have Russian televisions. That's all they have.
Yeah, it's a fossil fuel country and it's a agricultural export country. You're right. They don't do manufacturing. It was just kind of funny because you have a lot of, I know we don't like fossil fuels, but if you have a lot of fossil fuels, you can create manufacturing, right? You have the energy capacity to create state utility supported, and we know they're kind of a weird quasi-state private entities in business. But you could have major manufacturing at pretty affordable labor for the EU and other countries. But businesses don't like unstable environments. Businesses like stability. They may not like the government. They may not like the regulations, but they like stability. Mm-hmm. So not all businesses enjoy working in other countries because they don't like the regulatory structure, but it's predictable.
If they can make a profit at it, right, they'll do it.
Yeah, they like it when it's predictable, so they know if the business can or cannot thrive in that environment. Russia is very unpredictable right now, and they've been unpredictable for 20 years. So foreign investment gets nervous about making money there, right? Mm-hmm. So China now has reached unpredictable because the saber rattling about taking over Taiwan. Yeah. The new national security law, espionage law regarding handing over your data to the Chinese government when asked, the requirement of how much state and Communist Party representation on your boards and businesses in China has made U.S. business more nervous. And the Chinese need to, and they do need to, and business is going to flee, is they have to repeal the tax credits and tax breaks. One of the reasons a lot of foreign investment is China because they created very, 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 very lucrative no tax incentives for them to bring their money to China. And now they're paying the price for it because all this foreign investment in China was receiving very little or no taxation. Mm-hmm. And that has an adverse effect on the Chinese economy to support itself as they want to be, like all other countries with large infrastructure and support systems domestically. And well, you got no tax money. Obviously, that's not going to happen. You're dealing with 1.2 billion people. And they're also aging out. So you're going to have to provide a lot of support for senior citizens. So if they're not collecting sufficient taxes, then that's not going to work, right? And if they can't keep the economy going to continue this middle class, we all know the uber rich don't pay that much. So, they got to stimulate this economy to keep this thing moving so people get paid. And got a 20% plus unemployment rate among young folks under 26, I think. So, that also impacts your long-term economy too. But one of the things that they been having a hard time on taxation is taxing foreign businesses that have gotten used to since the 80s, zero taxation on foreign investment. So foreign investment into the country. So, also doing, trying to keep the money there because people are trying to flee to make investments in other places, basically to hide the money from the government and make money in other places. China's more complicated than people realize in terms of its economy. Yeah, it's second biggest economy in the world. It has one of the highest purchasing powers per person because of the volume of people. It has one of the biggest middle classes on the planet, but nowhere as wealthy as our middle class. But it, again, but also, they're integral part of the global economy. But they're also subject to the same forces every country is regarding foreign investment. And the U.S. government has the most liquidity on the planet. I mean, we have the stock market. I mean, it's like instant liquidity. If you have a viable business worth billions that people are going to take a risk in and invest in it. Our private stock markets are not run by the government. They're privately held stock markets, right? And, that includes a little Boston stock market we have down in the Financial Center, Post Office Square. There is a little one there. That's all privately run. So it's not like the state comes in and says, shut down your market, right? They make a decision themselves on the adverse impact on the economy if the market goes a certain direction. Great Depression, right? And again, they also stopped trading. First Republic, for example, right? First Republic Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, they stopped trading on purpose because they were going into the toilet fast in stocks.
Right.
So suspended trading. The Chinese government can just go to Shanghai market and just shut it down in a day if they felt like they wanted to for whatever reasons they think. So yeah, I mean, business certainty, which leads to other countries like, how confident government of Vietnam, how confident government in India, how confident governments in Indonesia, how confident government in Mexico, right? That's part of the business calculus, right? A lot of onshoring is coming back to, actually interesting, a lot of Western part of the country, but also onshoring back to places like Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, just talking about this with Congressman Lynch earlier today, that the U.S. dollar is still what countries base their currency on.
Yeah, it's fluctuated over the years, but it's still between 70 and 90%, depending the industry. It can even be higher depending industry on trade. So, if I'm in South Africa, for example, and I want to sell gems to a jeweler in Canada, well, would they trade it in South African dollars or Canadian dollars? No, because they want confidence that the transaction will be in money that will be valued.
Mm-hmm.
So they conduct a transaction in U.S. dollars. And
right.
If you listen to other markets in the world on the news, they will sometimes state both the currency local and the current price of the U.S. dollar as part of news reports.
Yep.
And it's interesting. Even countries that say they're demonetized and they're moving with the U.S. dollar still actually say the U.S. dollar in their reports at the current, whatever the current rate the report was written at the time.
Yeah.
So it's this weird thing. And but I mean, it's also the reserve currency of the world. I mean, as I said earlier this year that during Warren Buffett's, one of Warren Buffett's statements was that he's looking at treasury sheets and he couldn't figure out where the money was because like half the U.S. printed currency is not inside the U.S.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, and we saw that with the Russians, right? They had all this U.S. currency in the U.S. that we froze when the war hit. And I always tell this to other folks. I mean, if you're going to buy a treasury, a debt from a country, would you buy a Chinese treasury or would you buy a U.S. treasury?
Right. You'd buy the U.S. treasury, of course.
Yeah, confidence to pay that bond when the bond is due, right? Your confidence in buying the British gilt is higher than buying, something in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually part of it too. Is when you calculate the U.S. dollars that are not here, then that's the U.S. including U.S. treasuries, right? I mean, it's hard to get away from the U.S. dollar because just the full faith and credit of the United States is not just words. That's a global statement.
Stimulating the local economy right now is the lottery.
Well, again, I don't encourage people to gamble, but you all saw the numbers and you can make your own decision what you want to do next. The multi-state is a big deal. We saw this during COVID because people weren't buying multi-state at one point, and
right.
we ran up these jackpots, in the near or over $1 billion. And it offset a lot of our lottery problems regarding Keno when the restaurants and bars weren't open. You couldn't play Keno. So the multi-state games, again, really help all lotteries or participants, including our own, and helps potential shortfalls in other parts of the lottery. Again, scratch tickets is still very popular. It's a uniquely a Massachusetts thing. And you all know that, in the budget now, the House version of budget includes some internet lottery options that will fund early education programs. And, that's part of negotiation right now.
Right. Yeah, that might be one of the sticking points, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, in the past, the Senate had in the past put in the internet lottery as part of the economic development bill. This House had not. Under Speaker Mariano, last cycle we put into economic development bill. The Senate didn't want to do it on their side, despite actually voting it on in the past. Trying again in this year's budget. I have a lot of mixed feelings on this issue. I think you've heard in the past. I don't believe it creates new gamblers in the way people think it does. I still believe sports betting is going to be more popular than the lottery. My personal opinion, particularly the younger generation. I think one of the misconceptions is that you change the medium because you think people on these things all kind of like follow that, right? We all remember MySpace. Facebook killed them off. Right? MySpace is a shadow. Instagram is strong, but TikTok is stronger. And now we got Reels. Facebook Meta put out Reels via Instagram, and it's now but it peaked out at like 100 million so people, and the slow growth slowed. In Twitter, while significantly smaller than Instagram, hasn't seen an enormous peel off yet, right? Because it may still happen, on people shifting over to Reels. So, I said it's a sports betting. I mean, I always believe it's going to continue to be strong, but you also had that novelty factor early on, right? It's new. Let's try it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but it is going to plateau. There's just, the market gets saturated and that's it.
Yeah, and the internet lottery could be a factor in the larger picture of online gaming via your phone. But the question is outstanding is whether or not to create a new generation of customers while you're having a competing space with sports betting, of competing spaces of urban-based casinos, meaning Wynn, which is casinos we can go to. And even people who aren't as interested in gambling as a regular activity. Again, the Powerball is an example of that. People will buy a lottery ticket for $2 for the sake of why not, right? But you may not see the customer again for another year, or maybe in this case 3 months if the Powerball, does another massive spike.
That's right.
And of course, instant lottery tickets continue to be very popular as charity giveaways. I think everyone locally has.
People love those. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you've all seen this somewhere, right? It's still a very strong part of our local culture to give lottery tickets away as a raffle prize. And maybe you get back your money as playing the raffle through that lottery board. Mm-hmm. So, and bingo still exists, even though it's not what it used to be. And I know in the past we talked about card table charitable gaming, and that never quite caught on. Well, you can't do that in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm. Just over the border, yep.
Yeah, I know. You guys all know all about devices.
So if I'm not here next week, Tacky, it's because I hit the jackpot and I'm in Fiji.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna go, invite me along. I mean,
all right, it's a deal.
Yeah,
We'll have to kick in $1 though for the ticket. I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll be here next week. So how do we get a hold of you in the meantime?
Well, we're not in today. Today's Wednesday, July 19th. Hopefully we're in tomorrow, pending the ventilation, but we do have high hopes that we'll be back in tomorrow. 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the number. Room 42 of the State House. You can reach me by email at tacky.chan@mahouse.gov, tacky.chan@mahouse.gov. My email box is rather inundated right now by testimony. It's a lot. But I do read through it and make sure that the staff and I will get back to you. But patience, everyone, please. It's drowning in email. We have Facebook. We have a State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook. Don't Facebook message. Call me. Please call me. Don't Facebook message. And we have Twitter at Tacky Chan. We have that there. And we have tackychan.org. People have been actually using the contact page on that website and been getting emails from there, which because it has because I use Squarespace, it's a message from Squarespace. That's how I know it's used. So it's easy to flag. And of course, legislature.gov. We do have all our bills, committee hearings that are recorded. You can listen to me say something dumb on a public hearing if you want, as well as broadcast live. And of course, here with Joe at QATV and Joe's podcast in the morning. You might get your 3 to 5 minute brief.
Excellent. Appreciate it as always, Tacky. Have a great week.
You two have a wonderful week. See you hopefully next week.